This conference will now be recorded.
And there's the GoToMeeting voice that says we've hit the record button. Thanks, Brian. I want to give a disclaimer in my point number 6 here. We're not aware of every federal funding source that's been paused or defunded or it's on the chopping block. I don't think everybody has every piece of information. I think there's only one person that has that, and that's still being rolled out from that person's head in that person's office at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So we're learning every day, but I want to give that disclaimer that we're learning with all of you. So I hope to hear from you and share and learn together. The 7th point, federal funding pauses and cuts are taking place frequently. Sometimes they're subject to federal courts issuing temporary restraining orders, or TROs. You might hear us talk about that, or injunctions, or in some cases, a source of funding is cut or paused, and then it's reinstated. So I personally feel like I'm walking on quicksand with federal funding. I don't know how you all are feeling, but we can call this meeting information sharing and a little bit of group therapy. So that's fine if you need to do that too. Let's see. Basically, we want to help each other. In closing, I'll state that there is some federal funding in jeopardy to the regional planning agencies and county planning commissions in the nation. Some of those monies come from Economic Development Administration and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, EDA and EPA. We typically receive EDA money every year for economic development planning, and that's on pause. We get invited every March to apply for funding. We weren't invited this March to apply, so we'll see if that's going to be reinstated. The EPA I mentioned also. We do a lot of brownfield site assessment work, and we're going to kick in our revolving loan fund program again. So a site assessment work, we're being told to proceed cautiously. We also are told that although MRPC does not do community development block grant administration or writing anymore, I believe I saw something recently in the news media that's a target. This isn't, quite frankly, after 39 years of watching this stuff, this isn't really new. These 3 programs are typically in the sights of Republican administrations when they come into office. So those aren't typically unique to the current administration, but we know there's a lot else going on in other federal funding. If it has an environmental justice moniker or a DEI tag on it, those are definitely targets of the current administration. In closing, I'd like to say we'd like to hear from our local officials about federal funds, that may have been cut, or you have questions about other programs. The regional planning agencies in Massachusetts were created by the communities. We serve you. Local, federal, and state tax money pays my salary, so I owe the local officials research or to do a job, to do something, provide technical assistance. So if you have questions, then we're supposed to get you answers. There is a new state office, a federal funding office, FFO or FFIO, and they are there to help also. I'm not sure how long they're going to be around. I don't know. They could be around for decades. I don't have data. My point is, ask if you don't know, and share if you do know. I want to end by saying, how can we help each other moving forward? So I'm going to go around the romper room real quick, and I'm going to ask a first name, if you would give us your name, title, and community, if that's okay. And then if you want to hop on, demute and then mute back, that would be great. Kristen, can I start with you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kristen O'Brien. I am the COA Director in Shirley.
Thanks, Kristen. Brian, you want to do a quick self-introduction?
Brian Doherty. I'm the Transportation Director at MRPC.
Thanks, Brian. Chief of Police Harvard, would you go forward, please?
Hi, everybody. Jim Babu, Harvard PD. My first time in one of these meetings. I write a lot of grants for the department and for the town regarding usually traffic safety initiatives such as dynamic speed feedback signs, radar trailers, anything that has to do with traffic safety. I love to write grants.
You're going to fit in very well with Brian Doherty and our transportation staff and chief. That's great. Guy, you're up next, please, sir.
Guy Corbacero out of the town of Winchendon. I'm chairman of the Winchendon Planning Board.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks. Matthew?
Hi, I'm Matt Brenner. I'm the chair of the Lunenburg Planning Board.
Thanks, Matt. Awesome. We want to see you at some planning commission meetings, Matt, now that I know your name and face. So we'll reach out. Tracy, you're up.
I'm Tracy Murphy. I'm a senior planner here at MRPC.
Very good. Peter?
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Cunningham, member of the Groton Select Board. We recently actually had a earmark out of Congresswoman Trahan's office. It was $1 million earmark clawed back, and it was money that was going toward extension of a water line out to the high school to contaminated site. So we were definitely living the dream, I guess.
Peter, I'm really sorry to hear that, but that's exactly what we want to be hearing about. I have heard about earmarks were available for future funding, and then those were canceled also. So I'm sorry to hear about that. Sue, you're up.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Susan Templeton. I serve as John Cronin's district director, and he covers 10 communities.
Welcome, Sue. Always nice to see you. Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne Moses. I'm the land use clerk here in Hubbardston, Massachusetts. I serve as the clerk for the Zoning Board, Planning Board, and Conservation Commission.
Excellent. Leanne, thanks for chiming in today. Appreciate that. Alicia.
Good afternoon. I'm Alicia Hersey. I'm the program manager for community development in Air, Massachusetts, and I run a number of housing grant programs.
Excellent, Alicia. Thank you. Wendy, you are our 12th person to introduce.
Thank you. Wendy Weeks, I'm the grant administrator for the City of Leominster.
Okay. Thanks, you all. Feel free to chime in at any time during this. I'm going to be really respectful of time. I didn't prepare a speech. I don't have a long PowerPoint. I stopped preparing PowerPoints 20 years ago. The reality is I find there's a lot more benefits of us talking to each other to learn what's going on. I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm going to ask each one of you, because I've given you a background of what some of the cuts that we're facing. I don't know about others. I only learn about them when they are issued in an executive order. Another theme in my mini speech here is that the Montezuma Regional Planning Commission has received absolutely zero guidance from any federal secretariat concerning any of the funds that we receive. So federal DOT monies flow through MassDOT to come and fund our transportation planning services and doing a lot of safety stuff that Harvard Police Chief would be interested in, and vice versa. You guys are probably already on each other's hotline. The only word I ever got from any official who will be unnamed from the federal EPA said, I can't tell you this, but we hear that the new secretary likes brownfields, so we don't think brownfields funding will be cut. My concern is that without clear direction and directives, it is hard to plan and go forward. Now, you could take the last 10 words that I just used and apply them to any news media outlet on any business news channel, because that's what the business community is kind of freaking out about uncertainty. So we are in uncertain times. And that's why I wanted to say one of my points that I opened with, we're not hearing from anybody. What I'd like to do is go around, and specifically I'm going to ask questions of the local officials. I'm going to follow that romper room thing I did just quickly to see if I can extract some information. Are you getting information or not? Kristen, in your world, Council on Aging helping seniors, are you getting anything official about funding to assist your clients, your constituents in the town of Shirley?
We are not getting anything official. Really all we've heard from is mock. And we know that our Meals on Wheels have been cut. We now have people that are going directly to a wait list instead of getting put on. But that's all we've really heard from anybody.
So Meals on Wheels was cut. And when did that? Do you know when that was implemented? Like today, yesterday, a month ago?
A few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you getting any word on whether that funding might be restored, or is there anything you might see in the media about this topic, or officially from MOC or other parties?
No, we just got an email from MOC letting us know that the 15 people we had on Meals on Wheels are the only people on there, and as we've added people since, they've gone directly to wait list. But I've heard nothing from anybody else.
Okay. Any other funding that's been cut in your world, Kristen, or just the Meals on Wheels?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay. All right. Chief Bebu, did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
That was fine.
Okay, thank you.
Only federal grant that we have right now is coming from NHTSA to Government Highway Safety Bureau for traffic enforcement. That one hasn't been cut, and all the equipment's still coming forward. The one thing that is getting cut, but that's by the governor, is the mental health co-clinician money. We had a line item for 18 million. She's slashing it to 3.8 million. I'm working with my local rep and state senator to restore the funding for that. It could be devastating to all the communities. But that's there's no federal money. That's EMH grants. So I'm not sure. We have some big projects coming up. We have a big tip project for over $14 million to redo Air Road, and that's still going through.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I know that's state money, but I'm sure there's some federal money there too. And there's some bridge work coming too, so it looks like they're still going forward with it.
That's good news, and that's Brian's world. Brian, you want to chime in on it?
Yeah, the Air Road project is a definite go. That's 80% federal money, so the majority of it. But yeah, seemingly, that type of infrastructure stuff will not be, affected. One other thing.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
One other thing I'll mention is we have been working on a safety action plan through USDOT over the last 2 years. We're right at the end stages of that. That'll qualify a number of infrastructure projects, safety related in the region for federal funds. They just reissued that, so it seems like that's going to be good as well. You may have heard of that. We've been reaching out to communities for over a year on that, so seemingly that's safe as well.
So far, so good in that area?
One of the other things I've noticed, I still get a lot of notifications from the federal Department of Justice grants. They're still coming through. There's still a lot of grants out there. I just got a big one, say if you want to apply it this morning. So.
Okay, that's good news. So far, so good on the DOJ.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. All right, excellent. On transportation funding, I just want to make note, during the first Trump administration, they did issue it was a policy statement. It was 55 pages, give or take, on how they would transform the Federal Department of Transportation, or Federal DOT. And basically it all hung on one sentence in there, that they would flip the funding share from 80 federal, 20 state to 80 state, 20 federal. So if that was ever implemented, which would have to be done through legislation, not by an executive order, presumably anyway. To my knowledge, that has not been proposed in this administration, but we have 3 years and 9 months to go, and that was on their radar screen about 8 years ago. We'll see. I hope DOT is safe. I really, really do. We need our roads and bridges. So okay, great. I'm going to go to Winchendon and Guy. Are you hearing anything locally, sir, or your town manager shared about funding cuts or other related issues?
Actually, I've been out of the loop for a little while, so I haven't heard anything.
That's fine. That's fine. But everybody's going to get the question. And Guy, you always know. You know my email address, and you have my cell phone number. So if you ever learn of anything, please let us know. Deal?
Absolutely will.
All right. Thanks, Guy. Matt, Lunenburg, planning, related world, local officials. What's the story in your community, sir?
I wish I had more information to give you. I'm pulling some extra work in the planning office right now to do some staffing needs, and so I'm doing a lot of filling in where we might normally have our planner or land use director in the role. So I'm not aware of anything that's been cut recently, but I've only until very recently been tangential at best in those discussions.
That's fine, but you're here. I appreciate your input, even though you don't have anything now. If you hear of anything in the future, or if you want to email your town administrator and let them know, and we just want to make sure we have an open dialogue. We're happy to stuff we learn. I am, just so you know, the planning commissioners meet. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is the first Thursday of every month, unless the first Thursday falls on the first or the second of the month. And then we go to the second Thursday. But if it falls on the third, like what's the next one? May 8th. We're okay. We met on April 3rd. We were okay. But in February, I don't remember what the dates were, but let's say it was February 1st. We would have met on the 8th. So we do now have a monthly report at the commissioners' meetings. So if you can't make the commissioners' meetings, they are recorded, and you can download the minutes also if you need them. So please know there are other places to get information. We're happy to share. I think we're all in this together. At least I believe we are. I want to be. So thank you,
And,
Matt. Any other
and
thoughts?
we have our representative at the MRPC meetings every month as well. So
Okay, good. Good. Stay in touch. We'll be in touch with you as needed as well. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for coming today. And don't leave. Tracy, I'm even going to reach out to, actually, I skipped to Brian because I was going local official, but I do want to ask should need to ask the staff, should have to ask the staff. Brian, are you hearing anything in federal dot or any other related, maybe federal highway or transit world about any cuts? And then Tracy, you're on deck.
No, and to be honest with you, a lot of the things that we've been working on directly is infrastructure type of stuff and safety stuff. So it doesn't seem like that's a target. I know some of the other, targets have, exist in every federal agency. Just hasn't directly affected our region as far as I know. To your point, Glenn, on the ratio of federal and state funds for things like a TIP project, I haven't heard anything, but my understanding of proposed policies in the past have been basically just cutting out the middleman who is the federal government and basically giving more funds to the state to do infrastructure type of stuff. But again, that's just hearsay. At this point, no major changes in our world.
Okay. That's good because we need to make those road and bridge improvements. I have heard through the grapevine about some transit cuts on transit, but I don't know. I haven't anything solid there, and I need to find something before I start seeing what's going on there. Tracy, anything that in your world or you're a resident of Petersham, I know you're close to the community, or anything else that you may be aware of, please feel free to share. Thank you.
Sure. The only two federal programs that I work with, you've mentioned the EDA and the EPA. It's good that we are going to start up the EPA brownfield program again, which is great. Hopefully, we'll hear something from the EDA so we can get that planning grant that we usually get,
right.
Which unfortunately is not available right now. So.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Tracy. And I should add to that. I highlighted earlier that CDBG, EPA, EDA, this kind of this alphabet soup. Republican administrations typically target those in the first year, 6 to 12 months of their administration. And then, the other side, Democrats target certain things too. So they kind of do it to each other, and we get caught in the middle. I'm not sure when the dust will settle on all this alphabet soup that'll be funded and won't be funded. We'll see. So we're all learning together. Thanks, Tracy. Peter, other than losing the earmark, which clawed back, as you said, what else is going on? I hope nothing as bad as that in the town of Groton.
Yeah, that was big because it was going to, we had a bond authorization from our town meeting to borrow the full amount, but then that earmark was going to, reduce the amount we needed to borrow, which would have been a big benefit to the taxpayers. I'm not sure what bucket Congresswoman Trahan, was getting that money from, but it was definitely an earmark that was slated to support that project, which really was a kind of a brownfields project. It was we had contamination at our high school well site due to PFAS, release of the firefighting foam at the incident there a number of years ago. So that's happened. Our brownfields grant through MRPC, that was on hold for a while, and it sounds like we're able to proceed cautiously with it now. So that's good, and that's completing the cleanup of a old shooting range, which actually the EPA had been in last year and did a pretty thorough cleanup on it. But there's some additional work that the state DEP wants us to do on it before it's actually closed out. So we're hoping we're able to complete that and go forward with that. That's certainly big. I did talk just recently with our COA director, and she was not aware of the cuts to the Meals on Wheels program that Kristen over in Shirley had mentioned, but she's going to look into that because our program is run through MOC too, so I'm sure that's something that we're going to be experiencing. So, that's what we're seeing. It's I think you touched on it before. The whole there's just so much chaos involved with what's going on, and it almost seems like every day there's some whimsical edict that comes down that we don't like something or don't like this, and we're gonna cut it and inflict some pain, and that makes it very hard to plan and to deal with things. So
thanks, Peter. Yeah,
that's where we're at.
Yeah, it is tough. I don't envy you your situation, especially to have $1 million pulled out. And honestly, I'm floored by the Meals on Wheels cuts. I didn't know that
Yeah,
until.
I don't know. Yeah, that hurts everybody.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
shouldn't be a political thing.
No,
That's crazy.
that's not really helpful. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate
Yep.
the heads up and the extra information. Sue, what about you? What are you hearing in addition to us?
We just keep our ears and eyes open, and Groton did get reached out to Senator Cronin about the clawback with the federal money for the water line. I was with the Congresswoman yesterday. She ran a Marlboro town hall, so I represented the senator there. She talked to about 450 people and basically said she's trying to course correct. And, she's in the same boat that we are. She's learning just as we're learning. So thank you for putting this together, Glenn.
No problem. Like I said, we learn every time he signs something new, and there's an executive order. And then, will it be a TRO? Will it be an injunction? Will it actually be a cut? Half the Department of Education doesn't exist anymore. I guess maybe our tax refunds will be slower, but on the good side, maybe if you had to pay in, maybe there's not enough people to process. So it seems to be everywhere. It's kind of kooky, but we are all learning together. I want to apologize. I feel like I need to apologize to my local officials, all of you in the room, and those who aren't here. That I wish I had more information. In 39 years, I've never seen a situation out of the Beltway from inside the Beltway where I couldn't track anything and I couldn't help resolve an issue to move something forward, but we're not getting information that we really, really need. It's hard to do planning. It's hard to, I'll be parochial for a second and with 10 seconds, it's hard to run a planning commission when you can't plan ahead for funding. So it is unfortunate. And communities and Meals on Wheels. And I mean, my complaining is over. I feel bad for the seniors. Leanne, may I ask you if you're aware of anything that's happening in your community of Hubbardston that you might want to share with people or ask questions?
Sure. I am not aware of anything. I am super new to my position and to municipal government, so I was interested in coming to hear what other folks had to say and if there was anything that I maybe should be aware of that I'm not. So I'm enjoying listening to folks explain kind of what their experiences in their municipalities.
That's great. I'm glad you came in, even if you don't have a question or a thought right now. That's fine, but keep participating and keep coming back. And you're meeting some of the staff here, and you're meeting local officials you may be meeting for the first time. So, and if you wanted to follow up with Kristen on Meals on Wheels cuts, and Shirley, send her an email. This is about, honestly, folks. This for me, this is circling the wagons. This is about how can we help each other. So, Leanne, thanks for coming. I do appreciate your time today. Alicia, how about you? Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
So I currently have a CDBG grant for housing rehab. That's an FY24 grant, and I heard that the money is stable there. Now that was 6 weeks ago, so if it's still stable, I don't know, but it is a 2024 grant. And it probably is at the state level, but early on we had heard about some clawbacks even from the state level. The other grant I have is a housing choice grant, which we're working on. Now I'm assuming that's state money.
I believe it is.
Yeah. And so, but sometimes there can be underlying federal money in there too, and that seems to be stable. We actually have an earmark on the current budget in the federal budget. And 6 weeks ago, I heard that the earmark was still standing. That was for 2 million for an affordable housing project that's nonprofit. I don't have high hopes for that, but it's there. And so that's where we are at right now.
Okay. Interesting. I do know also that the earmarks, this is the season to apply for earmarks, March and April, to your federal congressmen, ladies. And that application process has been canceled also. So Alicia, I'm going to go with my gut that your 24 block grant's probably going to be okay. Unless there's a clawback. I mean, even though it's an award of FY24, federal FY24, the state still has to draw down the funds from the federal government, from HUD. So the money just doesn't sit in Boston. They just like you have to draw down locally to the state, they have to draw down money in tranches from the feds. So Don't have data. I just heard that, the next target may be CDBG. But again, that is always a target with a Republican administration. And it usually takes 6 to 12 months for that to kind of work its way through the process. So we will see. So before you mute, Alicia, any questions or any final words that you might have from Air?
No, and our earmark was in last cycle, but it came on to, so we applied for it last year and for this year's budget. So it was put on this year's budget, but none of us know what's going to end up in this year's budget at this point.
I think that's the phrase. None of us know. I think that's a very common phrase.
Yes.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time today, Alicia. Thanks for coming in. Wendy, you get to bat cleanup in Leominster. If you have thoughts you'd like to share or questions, please take us into the next phase. And bluntly, if anybody doesn't have any other questions, we'll ask for any final questions after Wendy goes for Leominster. But then again, I'm happy to get you back to your tuna fish sandwiches.
So the first thing that happened was, the city had ARPA funds and the school had ESSER funds. You may have seen on the news that, I'm not sure if it was just for cities, but the ESSER funds, even though the school spent all the money and submitted the reimbursements on time and the documentation, they were, those funds we were told they weren't going to be reimbursed. That was about $1.8 million for our school system. That got resolved. I'm not clear whether it got resolved because of the federal, that we basically said that we had, this was inaccurate, that we hadn't done what we needed to do, or I think the state stepped in and they may have backfilled that money so that communities could get that money. But regardless, we did get that money. The ARPA funds, we held over about $4 million for sewer water projects, and those with contracts, those were supposed to be okay until the end of 2026. They told us a couple weeks ago that that may not be the case, so we should spend it now. So, all of our projects are basically going to be done by the end of May, so we'll be closed out by the end of June. But it definitely was a message that don't believe the 2026 date, because even if you have a contract, because it's not going to be the case, they're going to take that money back. So I think we should be okay with that. But they did expedite that you should spend it as soon as possible. So we're doing that. We have the Manusnock Brook project and the North Nashua project, both of which are bank stabilization projects through FEMA. Those are going through. We signed contracts for those in December. And we've gotten no inclination that those are going anywhere. We've gone out to bid, and those are moving forward. We did have a flood. We had about $30 million in infrastructure damage. The FEMA said no to all of that. This was in beginning of 2024. So we're still trying to match grants with the damage. MassDOT stepped up to the plate to cover about 7 or 8 million in 4 different projects. Those are going forward with a really, really tight timeline. So we don't see any of that disappearing. CDBG funds seem to be okay. We do have an earmark from last year for a community center through HUD. They've told us to go forward and prepare all this documentation. It's with anything with having to do with HUD, it's a long process. They haven't said no yet, but I'm not certain that that's going to go forward. And the earmark process this year was a complete disaster before it just was ended. So that's what I have to report. All the state stuff seems to be going forward. The end of our Housing Works grant seems to be okay. We're just finishing that up. So that's what I have to report.
Okay, Wendy, thank you. That's a lot of information and a lot of takeaways for me. For me, if I was a local official in the room, and if I had ARPA money, and I still think I can spend it to June 26, my concern is that a lot of officials may not know that. Do you know that the powers that be over ARPA from let's say your state contacts, are they informing all communities? Because RPs are out of the loop on that local stuff.
So this is in October of 24, Bloomberg Philanthropies actually took this over. they are, they are a little bit different because they actually engaged with us at the beginning of COVID. So we were already part of their process. So they took it over as a sort of because the government wasn't explaining anything. And so from a business perspective, they actually did a much better job. Unfortunately, it didn't happen until October of 24. So, most people were in trouble before, it's almost too late to correct that. But they have provided really good guidance since then. So this is what they're telling us through this Bloomberg. But everybody who reports through the system should be getting these emails. That's how I get them, through the ARPA reporting portal.
Okay, that answers my question. So people are getting that. Okay, great. Wendy, thank you. And this is a great segue. The chief just put his hand up. So Chief Babu, how about you? Go ahead, please.
Quick question to everybody here. I have some money from the state that was earmarked for us, and Representative Sina's office said that the governor's holding on to state earmarks. Anybody else experiencing that she hasn't released the money? I don't know, Wendy, if you have any earmarks from the state.
I don't think we have any state earmarks.
Okay.
I don't think we spent them, we don't have any recent ones, I don't think.
Thank you.
Were you given a reason, Chief, why they were being held on to?
No, so I think it's the budget. I'm hoping that she'll release the money. We're supposed to get $35,000 to buy some drones for public safety for police and fire. And it passed through the whole thing, and now she's just holding on to the monies.
Where was the money? Do you
The
know?
state was to my stat. It was through my Representative Sina's office. It was all voted for, approved, and now
Do you know if it was in the budget or a supplemental budget?
It was all part of the transportation bill, I believe. It was all in there.
So my follow-up would be, is it state budget money or is it bond money? Typically, I've noticed governors holding on to bond money, and they typically hang on to that for quite a while. So I don't know if you know the differentiation between where it's,
I think it was the bond bill.
If it's tied to a bond, governors have a habit of not issuing bond money quickly.
Okay.
And so there's nothing against any of our governors in particular. This has been a theme since the Patrick administration to slow down the disbursements when it's tied to bond money. And Peter's got his hand up. Maybe you can help, Peter.
Yeah, we had an experience with the bond bill. It was a transportation bond bill. It was an earmark that Senator Kennedy had put in for the reconstruction of the National River Rail Trail. And what happened and what we heard is that, earmarks and bond bills are like play money. They put them in there. Unless it then becomes part of the capital plan through A&F, it basically doesn't happen. So that may be where there was a disconnect that you can go through. Rep Sina should be able to track that down. But that typically, in order for the bond money to be expended, it has to be part of the capital plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Wendy, you're unmuted. Did you want to add something? Please do, if you need to. I wanted to make sure. I just don't want to cut people off. That's all. I'm out of words. For me, this was very, helpful for group therapy, but we did share a little bit. I don't want to hold people if it's unnecessary to do so. But just a general kind of round robin is, if anybody wants to go and ask a final question or has a final thought, or, hey, Eaton, MRPC, go figure this out, then I need some marching orders. If not, that's fine. Then I'll leave you all alone. If anybody has something, don't wave goodbye. Say you have a question, but if you don't, wave goodbye. And I'll close the meeting. How's that sound? Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, Glenn, quick question.
Shoot, go ahead.
Yeah, listen, the Brownfields grant for the shooting range was closed down for a while, but there was something that happened that made you feel comfortable enough to open it up. What exactly was that?
So we got word, not from the federal government, but from the state DEP. And I don't remember the official's name, that said that, the nice thing about these state departments is that they do work closely with their federal people. Usually it's across the street in a federal office. And so you get this kind of word on the street stuff, and my level of comfortability was raised about brownfields environmental site assessment program. It's about a month ago when we received word from a DEP staffer to one of our staffers that said, you know, the EPA is going to fund brownfields. There are 2 bipartisan brownfields bills pending. They're both favored by both parties, and we think brownfields is safe. So proceed with caution if you wish to proceed. So then I issued an email to Wendy, Peter, Tracy, Karen, and Beta Group, our consultant, that said, okay, let's do one at a time. Let's finish the Leominster job. Let's finish the Groton job before we take on a pending application from the town of Hubbardston. So I'm not 100% comfortable because, Peter, you're on my board of directors. However, I'm 80 to 90% comfortable if I only proceed one at a time. I'm not going to authorize doing 5 assessments right now, but if we finish one, finish another, go to a third, make sure the drawdown system still works. And here's the last thing I want to share with you folks. So like everybody else, we pay staff. We pay staff 50 grand a total a week, and then we have bills. We have a $2.5 million budget. Divide that by 52, and those are our costs, okay? The reality is that everything we do is reimbursed to us. So if the EPA shuts down its drawdown site, its system, which was glitchy once, the EDA system was glitchy a couple times. And when I see that, that's really what tells me if something's not going to be funded or it will. So we are actually making sure that even if we only have, let's say, $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 in time charges, staff time for a brownfields grant, we file a bill, we file an invoice every 30 days just to make sure that the system is still operating. And if it stops, then I'm going to stop again. But Peter, you know, we were given some level of comfort from DEP. I said, let's proceed one at a time on their advice, and we'll go from there. But if I have any hesitation, I'm going to shut it right down again and see what happens. So because, we're not a town. You know, we don't have a tax levy. We don't have a cushion. I don't issue quarterly tax bills every 3 months. So I don't have this bucket of money over here. We live off, you know, what did my accountant say before he retired?
You don't, Glenn? I thought you did.
Oh, I wish we did. If we did, I'd never retire. But we don't. So the reality is that, you know, the auditor said, RPAs don't make money unless you spend money. And it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to retire.
If our taxpayers heard me say I'm looking at them like a bucket of money, I
know, but it's about the reimbursement process. So you get a grant, you get an award on paper. It's not good unless the drawdown system works. So Peter, that's what happened, sir.
All right.
And Wendy, because you were a part of that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. If you're okay, we're done. I'll close the meeting. Thank you again for your time. See you in about a month, and we'll try to put some more meat on the agenda.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. Bye, everybody.